Welcome to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, where we cut through the noise and help you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff Somke. In the wake of the natural disasters in Appalachia and Florida, a wave of disinformation, misleading memes, fake news, and outright grifting has been flooding social media. In this episode, author Mike Rothschild joins me to discuss the spread of this kind of false information and what we can do about it. Stick around.
This is a crusade. This is a holy war against the deep state.
Where are the dictators? Where are the strong men?
Donald Trump is our instrument for retribution.
I'm going to fight for Christians. I'm going to fight for white people.
They have the Great Reset. We have the Great Awakening.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia? Because I am.
I want to see these people go through misery because of their grooming against our children.
After the assailant entered the home asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol.
I did nothing wrong.
Mike, welcome back to Did Nothing Wrong. It's been a while. It's great to have you on again.
Thanks for having me.
So I saw that you were doing your best to fact check some of the craziness on social media regarding the disasters in Appalachia.
Yeah, how's that going?
Seems like everybody has their hands full because this one really felt like it came out of left field.
Yeah.
It was incredibly pervasive, super intense content, absolutely designed to push emotional buttons, and it took people by surprise. And when the official response takes a day or two to come out, it gives these rumors a lot of time to really get going.
Yeah, the official responses to the sort of deluge of conspiracy theories, it always takes a little bit longer because you have to sort of understand what is being said and you have to come up with the numbers and the facts to refute these things. And you have to put it together and you got to go through layers of approval. And by then, this stuff is already everywhere. I mean, it's really the same thing that happens over and over where you have a conspiracy theory that comes out of a mass shooting or a disaster. This stuff starts the moment the event starts, and the debunkers and the fact checkers and the people whose job it is to sort of push back, it just takes a little bit of time to put everything together. And unfortunately, that's the one thing that you don't have in a situation like this.
Right. And it allows that narrative to take hold. And when you see the people that are supposed to be kind of pushing back on it, they have to, like you said, put together sort of even a what's going on here type of response. Once they figured that out, then you're in some cases hours, in some cases days into things getting absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that is just the way it's always been. The truth always takes a little bit longer and requires a little bit more work than just pushing out whatever you make up in the moment.
Right.
Because whatever you made up in the moment doesn't need to be true. No one cares. It's just, is it pushing my buttons emotionally? Does it fit with the things that I already believe? I'm not going to fact check this. I don't want to fact check it. I want to share it.
Right. And a lot of this stuff is simply designed to push emotional buttons. The one that really got me was the picture of the little girl on the raft holding her puppy, looking really sad, and you find out it's AI. And then you've got state congressman from Indiana not even caring that it's AI. They're like, it serves this greater narrative to have this picture out here because there are people suffering. So where's the harm in running with an artificially generated version of this?
Right. That picture, of course, we've all seen it, is designed to appeal to your emotions. It's a terrified little girl. There's a puppy. There's rescuing. And I mean, it's the same reason that Save the Children worked with QAnon. You know, anytime you're talking about children in need of rescue, the sort of emotional levers are pushed and you just take leave of your senses. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the things that you really saw was once it was clear that this picture was AI, and I mean, to me, it was always clear that it was AI. It was not even a particularly well done AI. What you had was, well, I know that this picture isn't real, but it represents something real.
Right.
The truth behind the picture is more important than the truth about the picture. And the truth is that FEMA is abandoning all these people, which of course FEMA is not abandoning all these people.
No.
But this idea that the actual delivery method of the information is not actually true, that's the same justification that people used for things like the protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Right.
It is, well, the document might be a forgery, but it contains truths that are real. Otherwise, why would they be suppressing it? And, it really is the same kind of thing. It doesn't matter that this is true. The underlying facts are true. Therefore, the veracity of the picture or the document, that doesn't matter.
And we just saw this with Springfield, Ohio recently, where they went ahead and ginned up a false narrative that Haitian refugees were eating the locals' pets. And when J.D. Vance gets called on this on national TV, he basically says, yeah, okay, maybe that's not true, but these people are suffering, and this is how we choose to bring it up to make you pay attention to what's going on here.
Right. We need stories.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if they're true or not. We just need the stories, and we need people to get angry about the stories. And of course, this is the sort of terminally online, brain-rotted Fox News Steve Bannon stuff that used to be very fringe, and this wasn't stuff that ever escaped into a presidential debate.
Yeah, no.
And then 15 minutes into the debate, Trump is screaming that they're eating the dogs. If you don't know what he's talking about, if you haven't been following this Springfield story, if you're like a normal person with a job and kids and like you're not soaking in this garbage all day, every day, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? And if you've been soaking in this crap all day, you think, oh, he's saying it. He has the courage to point out the pet eating, the horrible things that the Haitians are. It is taking a very small sampling of people and pretending that is everybody.
Right.
And of course, no one remembers anything about that debate now other than Trump screaming they're eating the dogs. And he sounds like a lunatic.
Right. And it's amazing how far it's come from, chain emails at one point to this whole sense of now this gets spread online, and the former president of the United States says it in a debate on national TV. And everybody kind of has to pretend that this is the new normal. And it's really terrifying now to think that none of this stuff, like you said, was especially well done. None of this stuff is very well put together. It all falls apart on the slightest fact check.
Yeah.
But this is what's getting people. We used to worry, it seems like, that AI would be so perfect that no one could tell the difference. But I think we've kind of realized in the last year that it doesn't actually matter. That it doesn't have to be perfect or anything resembling perfect to fool a huge chunk of the population at this point.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's good. It just has to fit with the things you already believe and be good enough to pass muster on a 5-second glance, because you're going to go, oh my God, that's awful, Cher. And that's it.
Yeah. So you've written a few books now about conspiracies, and you're the right guy to talk to about some of what we're seeing here. You mentioned the protocols being something that's kind of lurking under the surface of this, with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene again saying things like they can control the weather.
So going right back to the weather control stuff. Yep.
Who's the they, Marjorie?
Right. Well, we know.
We know. How many of these themes are we seeing that you've heard before, that you've run across in your writing?
Almost all of it. The weather control stuff, they're manipulating the hurricane to stop voting, to make everybody vote early. I mean, there was stuff like this with Superstorm Sandy in 2012 that, Obama unleashed the hurricane to cancel the election at the last second. All that stuff is just old hat. All of the sort of the federal government is interfering with us and all that stuff. The one thing that's actually sort of new, and I think is really a good example of how the far right is kind of inverted in the Trump era from, the president is the rotten head of the stinking fish to Donald Trump is our God King and we will believe anything he says, is really the role of FEMA.
Right.
And, now you have these people who are like, why aren't I getting my FEMA aid? Why isn't FEMA bringing my Starlink to my cabin and setting it up for me? Why did Kamala Harris order them, not to install all the apps on my Starlink? I mean, just like this almost comical dependence on FEMA is such an inversion from, Ronald Reagan saying that the 9 most dangerous words in the English language were, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. These are the people who would tell you if a federal agent came to your door, shoot him in the head.
Yeah.
And now it's like, why aren't I getting my artisanal bottled water rather than this tap slop. How dare you?
Yeah. In the 90s, none of these people wanted to see FEMA.
No, that's exactly what it was.
They had camps. FEMA had black helicopters. They would lock you up in these camps and prepare for the new world order to take over. And now it's like FEMA can't get here soon enough for these people. It's wild how...
Well, it really is. Like, even Mitt Romney ran on we get too much free stuff from the government, and now it's where's my free stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It's unreal how much it's inverted.
It's like they finally decided to embrace the socialism part of National Socialism. They
totally
finally realized, hey, people like free stuff.
Hey, we can get our goodies.
Absolutely. One of the things that really gets me about this, and you kind of have to drill down at least a little bit into some of the social media posts on this, is you'll see a post that's very inflammatory talking about the situation. It'll have some incredibly hard to prove allegations, and almost invariably a couple posts later you will see somebody using the phrase or some variant of the phrase, you just can't hate these people enough.
Right.
And it says something about what the secondary goal of all of this is, because they really want to tap into that sort of latent, like you said, Reagan mentioning the 9 most dangerous words in the English language, that sort of latent distrust and hatred for the federal government.
Right. And look at where this is all happening. It's happening in North Carolina and it's happening in Georgia. You have 2 states that Trump absolutely has to win to have a shot at winning the election.
Right.
And Georgia is a coin flip, and North Carolina, he's being dragged down by the worst gubernatorial candidate in modern history.
Oh yeah, that guy's a winner.
When you've got the black Nazi on your ticket, and you've been all over the media telling everybody how great he is, well, you need something to rile people up. And yes, these places have been hit hardest by the hurricane, but it's also like this kind of a very intense hatred for not even like the government, but like they're calling it the Harris-Biden administration.
Yes.
As if like the vice president is the one who decides what FEMA gets. I mean, that's actually what Congress does. And Congress has stripped away FEMA's funding and will not meet to authorize more funding for FEMA. But things are so close in these couple of states that they really feel like this is the thing that they can do to rile up the anger and really turn people out and turn people against specifically Kamala Harris. And of course, what it's actually doing is just like destroying the infrastructure of these remote counties so that people maybe are not going to be able to vote on time. I mean, the problems are real. They're just not the problems that the people focusing the anger are focusing on.
Exactly. I mean, they've made Kamala Harris out to be the most powerful vice president in history, or at least since Dick Cheney.
Sure.
And we've got a setup for a narrative where Trump, if these people don't get to vote, if voting is wrecked in these sorts of places, and it's real hard to see how it might not be looking at it, Trump's going to claim that he lost because his supporters couldn't vote.
Right.
He's got this all just ready to go at this point.
Yeah. And it's certainly not a conspiracy theory that you can plan, but of course these people are really good at adapting to things.
Mm-hmm.
You take whatever is happening in the world, and it's not like you caused it, but you're exploiting it. You know how to use it, you know how to weaponize it. You've been doing it for a long time very successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fairly trivial to do that with a major disaster. You weaponize it politically to use against your opponents.
And we're in an era now where that is absolutely standard operating procedure. This is something that even during, say, Hurricane Katrina, this wouldn't have been something that anybody would have tried to politicize at that point. I mean, the response had to get real bad before anybody was willing to say a bad word about how the Bush administration had handled it at that point. Whereas this time, they were out of the gate with the government is blowing this.
Right. And even like really people who you wouldn't expect to say it, like the government, mishandled the response. How did they mishandle it? They're actually like people who are on the ground have been saying things like, FEMA's given us everything we've needed right away. You've got even governors who are like, we asked for a disaster declaration. We got it like 5 minutes later.
Yeah. You've got just about every elected official in North Carolina saying that FEMA and the government have been right on this thing. just as all over it as it's possible to get. And then you hear people complaining that, well, they're shutting down relief flights. They're shutting down all these helicopters. Yeah, because they had 30-something near misses the other day.
Right. Because the sky is absolutely full of planes and helicopters, and it doesn't really help anyone to have them crash into each other. Like, there are things that have to be done in places like that. You can't just have everyone show up with stuff.
Do you understand how air traffic controllers work?
Right. Yeah. And it's sort of the same thing we always see. It's like these people just don't understand how things work.
And how much of that is don't understand, and how much of that is it would help my narrative if I didn't understand this?
Well, that's a lot of it. I mean, they don't understand, but they don't want to. They don't want to look at it and go, yeah, we can't just have like helicopters landing in people's front yards. Like, we need to have some procedures in place. And the federal government is actually kind of good at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's their job. And so maybe we should just let them do it. But if you don't actually want the federal government to do its job well, then you will just seize on anything and misconstrue it for your own narrative.
Right. And we've seen so much of that in this particular situation. And the other thing we've seen that's been kind of terrifying, but not entirely unsurprising, is that the usual suspects all seem to be on the scene with their hands out, ostensibly for relief or ostensibly for helping people out. But considering the past history of some of these people, like I saw Give, Send, Go, that famous QAnon influencer and failed political candidate Tracy Beans has going.
Yep.
And she's raised something like $50,000 for this the last time I checked. And you hate to be the person that won't give these people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're serious, but this is a woman who was at the very beginning of QAnon, as you know, and decided to see how she could fundraise off this thing, like right from the jump. And this has been her whole MO pretty much the entire time she's been on the national scene. She's not the only one.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, these are all the same people who thought that the, pandemic relief was socialism and destroying the country, but they all got their PPP loans. They know how to push away, the goodies with one hand and pull them in with the other. And you got something like Tracy Beans, like she's been doing this for years. She's constantly running Give, Send, Goes and funding drives. I mean, my house burned down. Don't know how that happened. I need money. Now I'm in a flood zone. I don't know how that happened. Give me some more money. And that sort of endless supply of rubes who will fork over a few bucks to help out the citizen journalists who are the only ones who tell them the truth. It is such an easy way to make money. I mean, it's a wonder that we're not all doing it.
That's the funny part. And we've had a few people on here who've talked about, what would my origin story be if I was going to go over to that side of it? Robert Silverman most recently saying kind of like, if I was going to go do that, what would I say? And it's very easy to look at the people who've done it and say, that's the smart move.
Yeah.
Those of us who are still out there kind of slugging it away for either no or very low money or recognition or any of that.
Yeah.
There are times where you find yourself kind of thinking like, what am I doing? Why am I not in on this grift? I've watched enough of these people do this.
I know how it works.
Yeah. I've seen it from the back end. I could out-grift all of these people, but then you realize you got to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how some of these people do.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know how some of these people can reconcile what they're doing. Maybe they really, really believe that the government is trafficking hundreds of thousands of children and causing hurricanes and doing all these horrible things. And like, well, I can't get funding any other way. And the liberals have canceled me and destroyed my business. And this is the only thing I can do to survive. Maybe they really believe that. Right. I think that you believe it. It's some aspect of it, but it's like these people are just making things worse. They're actively hurting the disaster relief efforts. They are putting people in danger. And like, I don't think a few bucks from Give, Send, Go is worth that to me. But, that's why I'm not doing it.
Right. And we're about to see it again, because as of this recording, we are looking at Hurricane Milton expected to make landfall in the Gulf Coast of Florida, and it's looking bad. It's a Cat 4 right now.
It's looking like a disaster.
Absolute disaster waiting to happen. And we're going to see all of this again from probably almost all of the same people.
Yep. All of the same people will be saying the same stuff. The nouns will change, but the same. Well, they're blockading the federal aid, and they won't let the patriots help out, and they're confiscating property. It's going to be the same stuff. And of course, I've seen already FEMA is tweeting like, "Get out of there now."
Yeah.
And all of the responses are, "Oh, now you care. You can't wait for you to get in there and steal my stuff." I mean, I honestly wonder how many of these people are going to stay in the path of the hurricane because FEMA is telling them to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. At which point, if you can write it out, you've got, a small career going. At that point, you're going to make some money.
Take a couple videos and get yourself a blue check on Twitter, and hey, there you go.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we're seeing the real downside of the idea that he's paying for clicks, because we now have people who are specifically just monetizing these disaster videos, making these incredibly false videos and cashing checks off of this. Like we were saying, there's almost no reason, if you're that kind of person, not to do it.
Sure. You put on your sunglasses and you take a video in your car saying that, your cousin's sister's golf partner's boyfriend said that FEMA came into his house and kicked him out and stole all his money. And how dare you? And President Trump, we need your help. Bam. It's maybe going to go viral and make you some money. And it's just, there's no barrier to entry anymore.
No, there isn't. Why does that kind of content resonate with people? Why is one car video of a woman crying seem to have more weight with a lot of these folks than disaster proclamations from the governor of their state, from every senator in their state, from the people that you would ostensibly think would know what was going on here? Why are we believing this?
They don't trust anybody. They don't trust the governor. They don't trust the media. They don't even trust their local media. It's all infested with liberals. It's all Soros money. It's all, it's all enemy of the people. But they trust the people who are, quote, there and telling the truth. I can't tell you how many people I've seen saying, like, I'm in Asheville. FEMA's been great. Well, my friend's cousin's, shift partner at the factory said that he had his car taken away, but like, they don't even trust people who are there.
No, they don't,
because they're not telling the story that they want to be true.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the real meat of it is that there's a story here that they believe, that they know in their hearts to be true. It's their truth.
Yeah,
and until you can somehow dislodge that, they're going to look for the supporting evidence for their truth. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that we saw with QAnon, where people would go dig this stuff out, bake these incredibly crazy narratives to support what they wanted to be true.
Yep.
And now we're seeing this every single time something like this happens. We see it in Springfield. It's like watching a car wreck in slow motion, waiting for Milton.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be so bad. And it's, I can't even imagine how terrible it's going to be. And everything, because we're so close to the election, everything gets run through the grist of this insanity and this like never ending election, and Trump riling these people up because he doesn't have anything else.
Right.
He has no platform. He has no optimism. He's not offering anything to anybody except, if you vote for Kamala Harris, we're all going to die. And it's like, I guess that resonates with some people, but for most people, it's just like, I need something more,
Right. And it's crazy how much it does resonate with people. That there's a lot of people who are very excited about Harris candidacy, potential Harris presidency, but then you have a lot of people who are just absolutely convinced that's going to be the end of the world, that it's all over once she gets elected. And it's time to go to the woods and start putting our enemies' heads up on pikes or whatever it is.
It is 1992 all over again. I mean, this idea that Bill Clinton was going to destroy the country, that he's going to totally transform us. And it's like, he's sort of progressive in some ways. And like, I mean, it's just, it is the same stuff over and over and over.
Right. And it's crazy how much more mainstream it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, you really had to go look up that kind of thing. And, you brought up the headshots thing, and it kind of reminded me of the guy who said that, Gordon Liddy, I believe we're talking about.
G. Gordon Liddy, yeah.
And this was, I used to listen to a lot of that stuff when I was younger. Grew up in Spokane, Washington.
Sure.
Liddy was on the air, Rush Limbaugh, all of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
And Liddy was always that guy who was talking about this kind of stuff. And really, you couldn't get this kind of content anywhere easily available before that. And it's like it evolved from this guy who was a former Nixon fixer who ended up looking for one way or another to make a living after he got out of prison. He used to debate Timothy Leary on the lecture circuit. He had all kinds of hustles, and then he found this radio show. He started doing this radio show, which really kind of took off as the edgier Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
The guy who was really, really anti-government and kind of had that tough guy reputation, so he could kind of say it and people would be like, well, okay.
He went to prison. He knows. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've gone from literally one or two of these guys out there to you cannot log into Twitter, which now with the way Elon Musk has come out for Trump at rallies, he's got a super PAC going, really ought to be listed as an in-kind contribution at this point.
It totally should be. It is. Twitter is just a Trump mouthpiece at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it is boosting the worst people saying the worst things. And the owner of the site just loves it and is so desperate for everyone to think he's cool and edgy. And, he just wants to be at the table where the cool kids are sitting. And you can see that with Trump and the way that they sort of stroke each other's egos. These are people who just want to be thought of as funny and edgy and exciting, and they're not at all. Musk, especially. Musk is the biggest dork you can possibly imagine.
Seriously.
But he just wants to be cool.
Mm-hmm. And they thrive on that resentment. They absolutely thrive on that resentment of not having been that kid.
Yeah.
Not having been the kid at the cool kids table. And now it's going to be everyone's problem.
Yeah. They're taking their rage out on all of us.
Uh-huh. I wonder what's going to happen if Harris wins. Does Musk keep Twitter, do you think? Or does he get out of it at that point? He's lost a lot of money over this thing, one way or the other.
It's a really good question. I don't know. I think if she wins, some of the thrill will be gone. He's going to kind of look like a loser.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I think at this point, the brand is so shattered that, somebody's going to sweep it up for pennies on the dollar and hopefully make it work again.
Right.
It's kind of one of the reasons why I'm staying on it is yes, it's sort of where things are happening right now, but it's also he could dump this and somebody buys it and makes it actually good again. And also I don't really like any of the alternatives.
Yeah, so. No, the alternatives aren't great. I mean, even Blue Sky, which is probably the best of all of them, is not terribly wonderful yet. It's got potential, but right now it still definitely feels like a beta product.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Twitter is that weird thing that seems to have the potential to do something that no other social media platform can do. And that's give you the option to talk to anybody else on the platform.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to pay attention to whoever that person is that's coming up and trying to talk to you, thank God.
Yeah.
But you can walk up to somebody and you can make your case. Somebody famous, somebody who's very extremely powerful. And to be able to see that interplay, like Musk the other day talking up one of his, they're not letting people land, they're canceling flights. And, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg jumps in and says, that's bullshit. Call me.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because you're watching really powerful people interact with each other, which, lets the rest of us in on kind of a window for how some of these things work. It is sort of a fascinating ecosystem, except it's just awful.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
And we didn't know how good we had it before. That's the sad part. We all complained really about it. It's the hell site. Yeah. I hadn't seen anything yet.
Yeah, no.
It's like we're going to long for the good old days of 2021.
Yeah.
Which is nuts, but here we are.
Yeah.
So where do you see this going in the future? Have we come up with any sort of effective way to get ahead of this stuff? Or are we just destined to be playing catch up the entire time.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, because of the nature of these things, it's so difficult to prepare for the impact of a crappy looking AI picture. How do you, I don't know that there's any amount of inoculation that can be done. And, the social media companies could crack down on these things spreading. But as we have just discussed, that is certainly not going to happen with Twitter. It's not really going to happen with Facebook either.
No.
We really need to be the ones who kind of stop this before it really gets out there. And not even sort of much as like people who talk about disinformation, but just as people. We need to see these images and go, this is fake. I'm not sharing this.
Right.
And I'm not going to share it even to dunk on it. Like if I need to talk about it, I'll take a screenshot or something. But like, I'm not going to allow this to go viral because of me, even if I'm pushing back at it.
Right. Right. Because we all want that dopamine hit of a particularly great dunk on something.
Yeah.
But we don't understand on a societal level that these people are in it for the amplification.
Right.
These people are absolutely in it to get their content in front of the highest number of people possible. And the algorithm doesn't know you're making fun of it.
Right.
There's no way to tell it that. So your dunk just helped that person put content in front of a few more people.
Yeah.
So really, if you could change one thing, that would probably be the best change you could make, would be to get people realizing, don't share that.
Don't share it.
Don't share it.
And if you need to, take a screenshot, indicate that it's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
You just take an extra beat and look at things and just try not to let your outrage get the best of you.
Right. Because we've got a month to go before the election. Things are incredibly cranked up right now.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that the election is not going to be the end of anything.
No.
That we're definitely looking at another period of stop the steal or some sort of argument for the immediate time after the election, and God knows how long.
Yeah, it'll be another stop the steal. It's gonna be different because the circumstances are different. Obviously, he's not still the president, so he doesn't have the power that he had before.
Right.
But there's gonna be something, and they're gonna come up with some ridiculous conspiracy theory about, how all the blue ballots came in at midnight. We needed to stop the counting. I mean, it's stuff that no one ever talked about before the last election because it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if Harris wins, it's going to be just a whole new flood of conspiracy theories and garbage and grifting, and it's never going to go away. Trump didn't start this. The internet didn't start this. It just made all of it quicker and more accessible and more lucrative. And unfortunately, we're never going to go back.
No, what it did was it absolutely turbocharged all of this stuff that was out there previously. Like I'm seeing certain, disinformation accounts on the other side blaming the whole like weather manipulation thing on Mike Flynn. And I hate to burst his bubble, but it's like this goes back well beyond Flynn, as I believe you probably know.
Yes, this is nothing to do with one individual person.
Sure. He's a shitbag, but I had never heard of Mike Flynn the first time I heard of this.
I don't think Mike Flynn has the weather machine.
No.
And of course, if Trump had the weather machine, why didn't he use it?
Yeah.
Why not deluge all of the blue cities with giant, very localized hurricanes?
Right. San Francisco.
If you've got the weather control and you don't use it, well, whose fault is that?
It's like you need to win Pennsylvania. Why aren't you using this thing in Philadelphia?
Right. Yeah.
You're killing your own supporters off doing it this way. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But somehow it never occurs to them that that's what's going on here. It doesn't.
No, it never does. Like, if Mike Pence could throw out all the electoral votes and just make Trump the president, why didn't Al Gore do that?
Yeah.
Why didn't Al Gore just say, no, I'm not counting Florida and now I'm the president? It never makes any sense.
No, and it doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't have to make any sense.
It's better if it doesn't.
Nobody seems to have any memory of these things 10 minutes after they're done. And we as a society are going to have a very hard time surviving if we can't remember the last thing that almost killed us.
Right. We have gone to this place where it feels like nothing before 2016 happened.
Right.
And unfortunately, it did all happen many times. We just didn't learn anything from it.
Right. But 2016 was such a huge, colossal shock to the system.
Right.
That it felt like it completely wiped the whole board. Everything is totally new and up for grabs now. When in reality, that's not the case at all. You can look back at a lot of this stuff and say, this isn't new. This is being amplified with some new technology that wasn't around when the original people came to this. But this isn't a new idea. None of this really is.
None of this is. Yeah.
And the way you're going to find that out is to actually slow down and do maybe some real research.
Yeah.
Just slow down. Google that phrase. See if it ever came up before anywhere. You know?
Right.
Oh, wow. 1985. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate you jumping on with me today and talk about some of this stuff. We're going to probably have more conversations about this going forward because I don't see us having less conversations about this, unfortunately. No. But the more people, I think, can get their heads around the idea that you don't have to share that thing. Right. You can slow down. You can take a screenshot. There's any number of ways to make your point here.
You can just disengage. Just log off.
Touch grass.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have a great rest of your day and talk to you again soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast. If you want to hear more, you can find us on the web at didnothingwrongpod.com. Please make sure you subscribe to get our content straight into your inbox. You can also follow us on Twitter at GrizaBJJ, GRZABJJ, as well as DNWPod. We're extremely grateful for paid subscriptions and donations that allow us to keep doing this important work. Thanks, and remember, everyone mentioned did nothing wrong.